Hello there, welcome to the Big Idea podcast where we focus on food. I'm your host, Andrew Ive. Today we're going to be talking to Fei, the co-founder of Liven Proteins. They're unlocking the full potential of plant-based foods through novel protein ingredients. Really interesting company, interesting technology. They're going to be creating an interesting future with new proteins. So let's get into it. If you have any questions or comments, please do leave them or reach out to us via the usual ways. bigideaventures.com, the YouTube channel, or any of the other ways. Let's get into the conversation with Fei from Liven Proteins. Thank you. Okay. Hi, Fei. How are you? This is Andrew from the Big Idea podcast, where we focus on food. Who are you and what are you up to?
Hi, Andrew. Thanks for speaking to me about this. I'm Fei. I'm co-founder and CEO of Liven. We are an early stage startup. We are a mission-driven company making animal-free protein ingredients by fermentation of food byproducts. And we really have a strong feeling about the circular economy and sustainability.
Amazing. There's so much to unpack in that that little sentence or two. So let's kind of go into it. Where are you based in the first instance?
We're based in Toronto, in Canada.
Fantastic. And you talk about sustainability and side streams and creating animal-free products. If you wouldn't mind, take us through what kind of animal-free products you're focused on, what kind of side streams you're using, etc. I just want to make sure that, in that few sentences, we don't miss anything important.
Absolutely. So we focus on making functional protein ingredients and based originally from animals. So currently we're working on animal-free gelatin. So it is a versatile functional ingredient, goes into candies, jellos, including meat jellies. So really creates a nice texture that people love and associate with animal product. We decided to work on this because the current alternative protein food, a lot of time the texture is missing. And we believe by making this a gelatin animal free, we can enable the alternative protein foods to taste better or more accurately emulate the animal product that people associate with, to encourage more people to purchase the more sustainable proteins. The raw material, the side stream mentioned, we're working on pulse starch or pea starch. We're probably all very familiar with pea protein because it goes to Beyond Burger and a lot of goodies. However, if we look at a whole pea, 25% is protein, highly valuable, but twice the amount, 50% above, is starch. So that is just food grade starch, but nobody wants them. So they get diverted to animal feed or even disposed of. It's impact the whole sustainability of the pulse process industry. So that's why we're converting that into the food items, gelatin.
Perfect. So you're creating gelatin. You're doing it without outside of the normal processes, and maybe in about a minute we can get into how traditional gelatin is made so that people can understand how what you're doing is different from what is the traditional industry. So you're creating gelatin. You're using a side stream, i.e. a product, a waste, what is currently used, considered a waste today, from the pea protein production industry. So the pea industry is taking peas, they are taking the protein out of it and using that for plant-based foods and so on. 50% of what's left is starch, and that starch is either getting disposed of or thrown away or used as animal feed or whatever. And from your point of view, you're taking that starch. I'm just making sure I'm getting all of this right. You're taking that starch and you're using it as a feedstuff to create plant-based, or not even plant-based, non-animal based gelatin. Is that Is that it? Did I get
That's perfect.
Is that it? Oh my goodness, I managed to get it on first try. Amazing. So gelatin, the gelatin that you're making, is it nature identical to traditional gelatin? In other words, you can't tell the difference between one and the other in terms of its look, feel, performance, and so on, or are there key differences, or how does your gelatin stack up against traditional gelatin? So that kind of be question one. Question two is, how is traditional gelatin usually made? So yours versus traditional, if you wouldn't mind just unpacking that a little bit.
Absolutely. Traditional gelatin is from different animal sources, from pig skin, like beef bones, from fish skin, scales, and bones. So there are many complex sources, and it is typically extracted from a side stream after people harvest the meats, and then the leftover they boil, and then they do acid digestion. So it's actually a lot of quite environmentally unfriendly processes, and that boils down into some gelatin powder. So what we are doing is completely different. We are using microorganism fermentation and from pea starch as food, and supplement with some other mineral material. Gelatin will be made inside of the organisms, exported out from the cells in a broth, and we will harvest it in a pretty environmentally friendly manner. In terms of the functionality, we will say our gelatin is, so what nature defines gelatin collagen is the DNA, the sequences, actually we call genetic codes that codes the gelatin as a protein. So we are using the same code as how animals code their own protein, and we code the microorganisms, and we make the gelatin using the identical code. So we would like our gelatin to be exactly the same as the gelatin from animal origin.
So so when you say you're using the same code, the output of your process is basically identical to animal-based gelatin. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
The difference is, to make traditional gelatin, you're taking bones and skin from, let's say, fish or pork or beef and other animals, and you're boiling, not you, but the traditional industry is going through a number of steps, which could include boiling and or acid, etc., to extract the pure gelatin, correct?
Right, and it's very polluting.
I'm sure.
And we are removing all that from the process.
Okay, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna make sure I'm not gonna get hate mail from the traditional gelatin industry. I'm sure that there are regulations around how they produce and what they produce in their factories and so on. I'm hoping that's the case. But what we do know for a fact is that your processes do not include boiling and acid and all sorts of other steps, because you're literally using pea starch as a foodstuff to grow microorganisms which are programmed to export or express gelatin, correct?
That's right. We basically have to create an environment that microorganism can grow. So organism grow the environment in our guts. It likes ambient temperature just like we do. So the entire process is very similar as how we brew beer, with some isolation process after gelatin is made. So I would say the entire process does not include any of the acid treatment or boiling process as a traditional approach. And of course, yes, there is the regulation around, so they definitely will have to treat the pollution that was produced.
Perfect. So in terms of the gelatin itself, once you've produced it, will it be usable in the food industry, in chocolate, and in all of the other ways that it's currently Jello and other things, the way it's used today? Your product will, because it's identical, can be used in exactly the same ways. From a production and cost perspective, is it comparable? Can you kind of produce the same kind of quantities and the prices are in line with the traditional industry? I was going to say, though, while I'm thinking about it, the traditional industry has spent decades developing scale. So, they've got factories of X number of 100,000 square feet producing gelatin on a minute by minute, round the clock basis. So the scale of the production of the traditional method is enormous. I would be highly surprised if you can make it for exactly the same price as a traditional method, at least today. Is that correct?
Absolutely not today. You are definitely correct. So we just successfully made our prototype animal-free gelatin with the gelling functionality a month ago. And the next step is to scale up. In the precision fermentation space, it is well known that a few companies ahead of us, for example, Perfect Day is already launching their product in the form of ice cream and other products. And I will say, as companies starting now, we are kind of lucky that these previous companies are paving the path for us in terms of scale.
Now, when you say they're ahead of you, does that mean that they've won the race already, or are they doing things in a different way and they're not, like, have they won? Should we be packing up and going home?
Absolutely not. First of all, we are doing things an entirely different way. We are the first precision fermentation company looking to using side streams as fermentation feedstock because most of the companies use sugar. And we know as more fermentation companies are coming up, the price of the sugar is going to increase. And at the same time, there are a lot of side streams. So from the sustainability angle and from the cost of feedstock angle, we're unique. And also, I have to say, amazingly, the space of alternative protein is more collaborative rather than competitive because we are solving a huge issue. We want to feed the next billion population. It's not going to be won by a single winner, but only the whole community can solve this issue. So I believe all the companies are working together, and the companies who are ahead of us, definitely they have their first mover advantage. And at the same time, we are having the advantage of learning lessons from their experience as well.
I think that's many, many great points in that. In terms of that collaboration across the food industry, do you see yourselves wanting to partner with the traditional gelatin companies or traditional gelatin company or companies? Do you see yourselves being a collaborator partner with that industry, or is that a competitive situation?
I would say perhaps it will be initially competitive in terms of that we are trying to have an angle to get in the industry that is predominant by the conventional gelatin industry. However, in the long term, I do see it is a collaborative because the whole world of processing is moving towards more sustainable approach. And by end of the day, we all want sustainable gelatin. It has a massive global market of $4 billion. And if we can help the conventional gelatin market to make the process more sustainable while maintaining, they have access to the customers, right? So they have the customers trust their brands, buy their gelatin. And if there's something that we can have synergy, we can help them to transition the processes, I definitely see it is beneficial for both sides.
Is this something that not only companies but governments should be interested in?
I think government is also creating this kind of a community around start to support alternative proteins, and also bridging to create linkages between the conventional companies and alternative protein. It is perhaps emerging, not as a mainstream yet. That's why I see right now is probably more competitive. But yeah, only everyone only once everyone is thinking about it and the government takes some initiatives, can the transition happens.
Perfect. What made you start Liven? And sort of, did you have other choices? I'm guessing you had multiple choices before you decided to start the company. What made you sort of say, okay, this is the moment when I'm going to start this company, and I'm going to dedicate the next 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever it might be, to build something like this?
I would rather say it is not planned, absolutely. So my background is environmental biotechnology, chemical engineering.
Right.
So my passion is always use microorganism to degrade something toxic and make it not toxic, but value added. So I did my PhD working on petroleum hydrocarbon degradation and commercialized that technology with an industrial partner called Serum. And I believe that microbial mixture is now somewhere in the market to treat petroleum contaminations in groundwater. And then I moved on to be an environmental consultant, brought in the team to use biotechnology to inform decision making. And at the same time, I see the use of biotechnology in sustainability and environmental industry is emerging, but happening very, very slow, because it is just not on everyone's priority how to bring new technologies to make things better. People are thinking about it, but everyone is busy with their day-to-day jobs. So I've always been talking to my co-founder, actually also husband, about how to create impact to use biotechnology that we're good at. So around that time, he has a friend who has a distillery business. So he has a lot of like byproduct in terms of spent grain. And we have been talking about, can we solve his problem by making crackers, sausages, or ferment the byproduct into something that's replacing something not sustainable? And we landed on the idea of animal protein, because we all love to eat delicious food, but the conventional delicious food is not sustainable. So we would like to replace that. And the byproduct part, I really resonate with my background, because they are surplus food that can be transformed into something that is more value added food. So we developed this, I guess, concept about we have to work on a project that bring a circular economy in the food value chain, fermenting byproducts to produce animal proteins. So that was a concept, and we talked to various people when we're both working on our own job. So it was a side project. And around that time, our daughter was born. So I was on maternity leave. I guess I have more time on me. So we worked on the proposal, got some grants.
Did you really have more time when you had a daughter, or less time? That's a calculation. I think you may have misjudged.
I guess it's less time to thinking about work, but I'm not a person who can just not thinking about work. So kind of transition from the previous consultant role to more thinking about bringing this new venture to life. So that is the time that we made a switch. I guess I made a switch to full-time dedicating, developing the idea, getting more connection, hone the idea to make animal-free gelatin, because we see it can solve a lot of big problems, and from like pea starch.
Perfect. And you said, and your company is called Liven. Where did that come from? What made you think of that?
Well, that's actually my co-founder's idea. So we keep thinking about the name. We need to bring something to life. We want to give the second life to byproducts that can be used as food, but they were lost. So that is where the idea was from.
Okay, so it was a side project. Then you became a mother, and you decided you had all of this time on your hands, which is crazy, but still. And you decided to move forward with the concept. How did it go from concept to business?
So around that time, we're talking to people in the alternative protein space to think about if we have this wonderful platform technology to make animal protein, what we should make. And around that time, we spoke to alternative seafood company and have quite a bit of discussion about how to support plant-based seafood and plant-based meat to have better texture. And the idea of gelatin moved to the surface. And we worked together to apply for a government grant, actually, to kickstart the project that flesh out and thinking about what kind of byproduct. And through more and more conversations, we realized pea starch is a huge problem in Canada because we made 10 million metric tons of peas in 2020. And just imagine how much starch we generated. So once we have the detailed technology idea, we got some government grants to kickstart our lab and hired our first scientist to actually start working on the R&D. And also get support from Big Idea Ventures and from you, actually, that's further actually helped me to dedicate in this venture.
Okay, fantastic. So challenges in terms of starting the company, getting it growing and so on, you make it sound very, very easy. Has it always been, has sort of one thing followed another quite naturally and it's all been quite easy? Or have you had times when you were wondering whether you'd sort of bitten off too much and maybe you were more insane than you realized?
I guess all the time we're trying to figure out what is the next step. And definitely, but somehow the next step landed in somewhat in a way that people outside see it's naturally happened. I recall when we have the concept, we're looking for funding. And when the funding is approved, we didn't have a lab. That's when the pandemic was really bad. So we basically spent almost more than half a year to 1 year to secure our lab. So luckily we started much earlier on before we had any money. We're already looking for labs. And then looking for employees. So everything kind of happened, looks like in a sequential way, but not in the sequence we actually did them. So
yeah, you make it sound like it was, we had this idea, I got pregnant, I moved the idea forward, we raised some money, you make it sound really quite easy.
I have to thank my daughter to join a lot of my meetings, investor meetings, lawyer meetings. She was in quite a bit of them.
Absolutely. So what's the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years all about for Liven? If everything goes, assuming you have a plan, if everything goes to plan over the next 2 to 3 years, what's going to be accomplished? What do you hope to achieve?
Absolutely. So we definitely have a plan. That's what we're all about. So through Big Idea Venture journey, we create a protocol, an animal-free gelatin with a gelling functionality. That's quite exciting. And the next step is to scale up the production because we have quite a few customers asking us for samples to test our animal-free gelatin in their application of plant-based fish, meat alternatives, and others, flavor delivery capsules. And we need to make sufficient amount for them. Single vial will not do, a few grams will not do. So only when we scale up to hundreds of liters for fermentation scale and have a robust downstream processing, then we will provide samples to customers for validation. And that will inform us to further optimize the gelling functionality of proteins and eventually reach commercial scale. So we're hoping to, in the next year, we will be able to provide samples to at least 5 customers at the scale of around 5 grams to 100 grams. And in 2024, we would like to have our commercial scale fermentation. So we can have initial integration of the gelatin in customers' products.
And from a support perspective, what are you going to need over the next 18 months, 2 years to deliver on these things? What kind of support would you like to get from others, whether it's, I don't know, fundraising or advisory or, you name it? How do you need help over the next year or two to accomplish some of these things?
Absolutely, we need a lot of help as a small team. So first of all, I guess for the funding side, we just launched a $2 million round to support our scale up of activities so we can have customer validation. So we'll have more active conversations with investors in the coming January, and other support, including mostly on the food side. We have to say we are a team, have pretty good background in industrial biotechnology. We have a combined 40-year experience in this area, but we're not food scientists. We don't know food as much as about biotechnology itself. So we are looking for support either as advisors or consultants to guide us through how to integrate our novel ingredients in the like final food items, perhaps even to develop some prototype that will lower the barrier of adoption. And someone who really understands the supply chains and have connection for customers. So there are a number of supports we're looking for.
And do you think that help is going to come from individuals with expertise, or do you think it may actually come from a partnership with a company or companies already in this space who understand it, very, very well? Do you think it's going to be strategic support from a strategic partner, or do you think it's more likely to come from, consultants and people who have just been in the industry for quite some time?
I don't have a very clear answer right now. Perhaps it will be a mixture.
Yeah.
So strategic partnership that, for example, ingredient houses that have their already customer tell, and we can co-develop some technologies together that will provide solution to their existing customers. And some of the support can come from independent consultants in terms of like food scientists to develop some prototype how our animal-free gelatin can be used in plant-based food. And also some organizations, I would say, for example, Good Food Institute definitely have a lot of resources for us to understand the food supply chain and the new areas to be explored. So yeah, I believe it will be a mixed approach. And if you have any pointers, I would love to hear your suggestion as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as you said, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. There's other companies going through taking different approaches on bringing nature-identical ingredients to market, especially around, gelatin. There's at least 4 or 5 companies that I can immediately think of that are focused on finding new ways of creating gelatin. I think strategic partners are going to be incredibly important. I think most of the forward-thinking sort of leading companies, even the traditional gelatin companies, should all be sort of aware of companies like yours who have the potential to evolve their industries. I wouldn't say upset or change or discontinue their industries as much as move their existing industries into the next phase, right?
Yeah,
they understand their customer, they understand the supply chain, they understand how to scale gelatin. So they've got a lot of things to bring to the party, as do you guys. So what I would hope is that when it's appropriate for you, you bring in the right partner to, bring gelatin into the next phase of production. Where it's not about animal bones and skin as a way of producing it, but it's about something much more sustainable. Absolutely right. So in terms of where can people find Fei, if somebody wants to reach out to you, whether it's to talk about your investment round or because they've got a unique experience that could be valuable to your objective, what's the best way of people getting hold of Liven Proteins?
Absolutely. So we have our website, www.livenproteins.com, and there is info, like email address there. And also feel free to reach me out from LinkedIn, and I'm always checking messages.
I know you said livenproteins.com.
Oh, .ca, sorry. We're based in Canada, so
I would say, your email address is livenproteins.ca. So your website is livenproteins.ca, correct?
That's correct.
Because,
thank you, Andrew, for repeating that.
Yeah, no worries. Livenproteins.com does exist, but I don't. Do you own that, or does somebody else own that?
We do. Just in case some other people use another website that is rather confusing. So, but our website is livenproteins.ca. You're absolutely correct.
You can redirect it, redirect that .com to .ca and have it just sort of auto-magically appear. Okay, so the best way of getting hold of you is through livenproteins.ca. I'm guessing you're on LinkedIn and some of those other places as well?
Yes, that's correct. So reach me out on LinkedIn. I'm always checking all messages.
Any last thoughts for people who are considering starting a company? Obviously, they could, get pregnant and hit maternity leave, but that seems like a drastic step as far as I'm concerned. What would be your sort of parting thought for people who are considering wanting to have an impact on the sustainability of food, or any company for that matter?
I will say if you have a mission, reach out to the community around you, the startup communities, alternative protein. What I found is in my, I'm still early, but earlier stage of exploring, a lot of people are incredibly supportive, and you can quickly find out where to find some initial resources and connections, cheerleaders to support you to start the journey. So reach out to the communities. We're all in this together.
I couldn't agree more. That the food industry has been the most collaborative industry I've ever been a part of. I would never think of competitors, just people I haven't figured out how to partner with yet, is probably the best way of putting it. Okay, Fei, thank you so much. Thanks for introducing us to Liven Proteins, and I look forward to seeing the next 18 months to 2 years and how amazing a company you're going to build. I think that's it for today. I'm going to press pause and then I'll be right back.
Okay, thank you, Andrew, for having me. I'm looking forward to the next phase as well, myself.
All right. Hope you enjoyed the conversation between Fei and myself from Liven Protein. By all means, like and subscribe. We'd love to re-engage with you and let you know when the next podcast is coming. If you have any questions or comments, by all means, reach out to Fei or myself. In terms of reaching out to me, I'm the founder of Big Idea Ventures. You can find me at bigideaventures.com, at LinkedIn, and that's basically the two best ways. Look forward to connecting with you. Hope you come along to the next podcast. Okay, have a good one. Thanks very much for coming along to the Big Idea podcast, where we focus on food.